The breathing on the other end of the line was too heavy to be a ghost, and too steady to be an accident. I sat in the darkness of my hallway, the old plastic receiver pressed against my ear, my finger hovering over the hang-up button. It was 2:14 in the morning. In the room next to mine, I could hear the faint murmur of my daughter, Julie, talking to someone in a hushed, jagged voice. She thought I was asleep. She thought the medication she had given me with my evening tea had knocked me out. But I have spent 50 years listening to the spaces between words, and I knew exactly what a lie sounded like before it was even finished. I didn't hang up. I held my breath and listened to my own daughter plan the end of my life as I knew it. My name is Martha Green. I am 74 years old, and for nearly 4 decades, I was a senior switchboard operator and a communications specialist for the regional telephone company. In the early days, I plugged wires into holes to connect voices across the county. Later, I managed the complex digital routing systems that kept the city talking. I was the woman who knew how to trace a call when the police couldn't. I knew how to listen to a line and tell you if there was a tap, a leak, or a second person breathing in the shadows. To most people, a telephone is a tool. To me, it is a window into the soul. People say things over a wire that they would never say to your face. They whisper secrets, they bark orders, and they reveal their true colors when they think no one is listening. When my husband, Arthur, passed away 3 years ago, Julie moved in to help me. Or, that was the story she told the neighbors. Julie is a high-end real estate stager. She knows how to make a house look like a home without actually making it one. She knows how to hide the cracks in the wall with a well-placed painting and how to make a cold room feel warm with a few expensive candles. But she never understood the bones of this house. She didn't know that when Arthur and I built this place in 1978, we ran extra copper wiring through the walls. We built a house that was meant for communication. Every room has a jack, every corner has a connection, and the main hub sits in a locked closet in the basement that she has never even noticed. For the last 6 months, Julie had been telling me that my hearing was going. She'd stand right behind me and whisper something, then act offended when I didn't respond. She'd tell the doctor that I was getting confused, that I was hearing voices in the walls, and that I was becoming paranoid about the telephone. She started bringing me new vitamins that made my head feel like it was filled with cotton. She wanted the house, not to live in, but to sell. This patch of land sits on a hill overlooking the new tech corridor. Developers have been sniffing around for years, offering millions for the lot so they can tear down my memories and build a glass office building. The call I was listening to tonight was the final piece of her puzzle. I heard her voice, cold and sharp, through the receiver. "Yes, the doctor signed the papers for the temporary evaluation," she whispered. "I've got the movers scheduled for Friday morning. We'll take her to the Shady Grove Center for the 48-hour observation. Once she's in the system, the lawyer says the power of attorney becomes active. We can have the house listed by Monday." No, she won't know. She's so drugged up she thinks it's 1995 half the time. The person on the other end was her boyfriend, a man named Kyle who worked for the very development company that wanted my land. I heard him laugh, a dry, metallic sound. "Just make sure the old phone lines are cut before the movers get there," he said. "We don't want her trying to call her old friends at the company." Julie sighed. "Don't worry, Kyle. I've already disabled the main box. She's disconnected." I hung up the phone very, very quietly. I sat there in the dark for a long time, my heart beating a slow, steady rhythm. Julie thought she had disconnected me. She thought she had cut the wires to my world. But she forgot one very important thing. I didn't just operate the switchboard. I built the switchboard. Wednesday morning was bright and clear. Julie made me breakfast with a smile that felt as fake as a plastic flower. "Morning, Mom," she said, her voice loud and slow as if she were talking to a toddler. "Did you sleep well? You seemed a little restless last night." I looked at the orange juice she set in front of me. I knew it was laced with the sedative. I picked up the glass, pretended to take a long sip, and then, accidentally, tipped it over onto the floor. "Oh dear," I said, my voice shaking just a little. "I'm so clumsy today, Julie. My hands just don't want to work." Julie's face tightened for a split second before she masked it with a sigh of pity. "It's okay, Mom. It's just the age. Why don't you go sit on the porch while I clean this up? I'll bring you some fresh juice in a minute." I nodded and shuffled out to the porch, leaning heavily on my cane. As soon as I was outside, I went to the far end of the veranda, tucked behind the large ferns. I reached under the railing and pulled out a small, weatherproofed handset I had hidden there months ago. I plugged it into a hidden jack I had installed years ago for Arthur when he wanted to listen to the radio while gardening. This line didn't go through the main box Julie had disabled. It was a ghost line, a secondary connection that ran directly to the old junction box at the edge of the property. I called my old friend, Pete. Pete was 80 years old and had been the head of security for the phone company when I was there. He was the only person who knew exactly how much copper I had hidden in my walls. "Martha?" Pete's voice was like gravel, but it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever heard. "Is it time?" "Yes, Pete," I said. "They're moving on Friday. I have the recordings from the internal lines. I need you to do what we discussed. I need the party line active by tomorrow night." Pete chuckled. "You got it, Martha. I've got the boys from the retirement club ready. We'll have the whole neighborhood patched in. Just give us the signal." The next 2 days were a slow motion dance. I watched Julie go through my drawers, deciding what to keep and what to throw away. She threw out my old operator manuals. She threw out the photos of me and Arthur at the company Christmas parties. She acted as if I were already gone, a ghost haunting her own hallways. Every time she gave me a drink or a pill, I found a way to dispose of it. I stayed sharp. I stayed focused. I spent my time in the basement closet, making sure the old intercom system, a relic from the 60s that ran through every room in the house, was fully operational. Thursday night was the final dinner. Julie had invited Kyle over. They brought a bottle of wine and a set of papers. They were celebrating their victory right in front of me. "Mom," Julie said, pouring me a glass of water, "we have some exciting news. We found a wonderful place where you can get some specialized help for your memory. It's like a resort. You're going to love it. We just need you to sign these papers to make the transition easier." I looked at the papers. They were the transfer of title and the permanent power of attorney. I looked at Kyle, who was smiling at me with teeth that were too white and eyes that were too cold. "It looks very official," I said, my voice thin. "But Julie, I'm worried about the house. What will happen to the phones? You know how I worry about the lines." Julie laughed, a sharp, dismissive sound. "Mom, nobody uses those old lines anymore. It's all digital now. The house is old. It's time to let go." I leaned back in my chair. I looked at the clock on the wall. 7 p.m. The exact time Pete and the neighborhood watch were scheduled to log in. "I think you're right, Julie," I said. "It is time to let go. But before I sign, I want to show you something." I reached under the table and flipped a small, hidden switch I had installed decades ago. Suddenly, the house came alive. It didn't start with a bang, it started with a hum. Then, a voice began to fill the room. It wasn't my voice. It was Julie's voice from Tuesday night. "Yes, the doctor signed the papers. We'll take her to the Shady Grove Center. She's so drugged up she thinks it's 1995. The recording was playing through every intercom speaker in every room, amplified by the old vacuum tube system in the basement. Julie froze. Her glass of wine stopped halfway to her mouth. Kyle stood up, his face turning a dark, angry red. "What the hell is this?" he shouted. I didn't answer him. I reached for the phone on the sideboard, the one Julie thought she had disconnected. I picked it up and hit the speaker button. A chorus of voices filled the room. It was the party line. "We're listening, Martha," came Pete's voice. "We heard it all. The sheriff is on the line, too. And so is your doctor, the real one, the one you've seen for 30 years. I think he'd like to have a word about these sedatives you've been giving your mother, Julie." Julie scrambled for the phone, but I pulled it away. Her eyes were wide with a mixture of terror and confusion. "How?" she whispered. "I cut the wires. I saw the box." I looked at her, and for the first time in months, I let her see the steel in my eyes. "You cut the wires you could see, Julie. But you never understood that this house is built on connections you can't even imagine. You thought I was a confused old woman because I spent my life listening. But that's exactly why you failed. You forgot that the person who listens is the one who holds all the power." Kyle tried to grab the papers from the table, but the front door opened. Pete was there, along with 2 deputies and my old doctor. They didn't need to ask many questions. The recordings were still playing on a loop, Julie's own words condemning her over and over again. I watched as they led Kyle out in handcuffs. He was shouting about his career, about how he was just doing his job. Julie didn't shout. She just sat there, looking at the floor, the fake world she had staged finally collapsing around her. The doctor took the bottle of vitamins and the juice from the kitchen. "This is a serious crime, Julie," he said, his voice full of disappointment. "I've known your mother since you were in diapers. To think you would use her own history to try and break her mind, it's beyond words." When the house was finally quiet again, Pete stayed behind. He made us a pot of real tea, no sedatives, no lies. We sat at the kitchen table, the old copper wiring hummed quietly in the walls. "You okay, Martha?" he asked. I looked around my home. I looked at the spots where the movers would have stood. I looked at the photos of Arthur that were now back on the mantel where they belonged. "I'm fine, Pete," I said. "I'm just glad the lines are clear again. It's been a year since that night. Julie is currently serving a sentence for felony elder abuse and attempted fraud. She's in a place that's much less like a resort than the one she had planned for me." Kyle's company was hit with a massive investigation into their acquisition tactics, and they've since gone bankrupt. I still live in my house on the hill. The developers still call sometimes, but they are much more polite now. They know that the woman who lives here isn't someone to be trifled with. I've started a small project of my own. I've worked with Pete and some of the other retirees to set up a senior safety network in the county. We use the old-fashioned technology, the stuff that doesn't rely on the internet or fancy apps that can be hacked. We use the wires. We use the radio waves. We've taught over 50 seniors how to secure their own homes and how to recognize when they're being manipulated. We call ourselves the Switchboard Sentinels. People ask me if I'm sad that I had to send my own daughter to prison. I tell them that I didn't send her there. Her own choices did that. I just made sure the recording was clear. You can't fix a broken connection with a lie, and you can't build a future on a foundation of betrayal. My daughter thought I was a relic of the past, something to be discarded. She forgot that the past is where the foundations are built. Every night at 8 p.m., I do a line check with the other seniors in the neighborhood. We pick up our phones, we say hello, and we make sure the signal is strong. It's a simple thing, but it's a powerful one. It's the sound of a community that refuses to be disconnected. It's the sound of people who know that their voices still matter. I sit on my porch now, watching the sun go down over the tech corridor. The lights of the city are bright and fast, but up here, things move at a different pace. I have my garden, I have my books, and I have my phones. I am Martha Green, the lead operator, and I am still in control of the switchboard. My mind is sharp, my heart is guarded, and my house is a fortress of communication. To the children who think their parents are losing their grip, I have a piece of advice. Listen. Truly listen, because the people who raised you might just be paying more attention than you realize. They might be hearing the things you aren't saying. And if you try to cut their lines, you might find that you're the one who ends up in the dark. We are the generation that built the connections you take for granted, and we know exactly how to use them. My house is quiet now, but it's a good kind of quiet. It's the silence of a system that is functioning perfectly. The copper is secure, the signal is pure, and the truth is always just a phone call away. I pick up the receiver, hear the steady, comforting hum of the dial tone, and I smile. I am home, I am safe, and I am perfectly connected. I've also started teaching a class at the local community center. Not about phones, but about the art of listening. I tell the younger generation that in a world full of noise, the most important skill you can have is the ability to hear what isn't being said. I show them how to read a person's tone, how to spot a hesitation, and how to value the silence. They seem fascinated, as if I'm showing them a secret superpower. And in a way, I am. The developers have finally stopped calling about the land. They realize that I'm never going to sell. This house isn't just an asset, it's a record. It's a record of a life lived with integrity, and it's a record of a love that was stronger than greed. I intend to leave it to the senior safety network when I'm gone, so it can continue to be a hub for those who need a voice. As for Julie, I visit her once a month. We don't talk about the house, and we don't talk about the money. We talk about the weather, and we talk about the books she's reading in the prison library. She's starting to sound like my daughter again, not the corporate stager who wanted to sell my soul. It's a slow process, like repairing a cable that's been submerged in salt water for too long. But as a communications specialist, I know that as long as there's a wire, there's hope for a connection. I am 75 years old today. The neighborhood held a surprise party for me on the lawn. Pete was there, and all the kids I've been teaching. They gave me a gift, a vintage, restored 1940s rotary phone in a beautiful cherry red. It's plugged in right next to my bed. Every time it rings, it reminds me of where I came from and what I've survived. It reminds me that no matter how old you get, you never lose your place in the system if you know how to stay connected. The sun has finally set, and the stars are coming out. I'm going to go inside and do one last line check before bed. The house is warm, the signal is strong, and I am exactly where I am supposed to be. This is Martha Green, signing off. The lines are clear, the connection is solid, and the world is still talking. And I am still listening.